Welcome to Galloway Township Board of Education. Today is March 21st. This is a regular meeting at 6 p.m. May I have a roll call, please? Davery here. Dr. Sheriff Wow here. Dr. Billawill here. Mrs. Carmen here. Mrs. Chester here. Mrs. Colgettis here. Mr. Dace here. Mr. Gentile here. Dr. Parmenter here. We all rise for a flag salute led by Dr. Parmenter, please.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
Thank you. In accordance with Public Law 231, both adequate and electronic notice of this meeting was provided to the press, the Galloway Municipal Building, and the district website on or before February 25th, 2022. We do have approval of minutes this evening from January 24th, February 7th, and February 28th. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Any abstains? Any opposed? Okay. Any opposed? Thank you. Moving on to reading of communications, please.
Thank you, President Carmen, and good evening, everyone. We do not have any communications this evening. Presentations. And I'm very pleased to say that we have several presentations. The first two in the performing arts area and offering congratulations to our students. So the first item is students from Roland Rogers who were selected for the All South Jersey Elementary Choral Festival. And I do see Mr. Little, the choral director, is here, as well as the Roland principal, Dr. Moore. So just to explain to everybody what we're going to do for both presentations, I'm going to be getting the microphone from the podium and coming down here into this open area. And I'll be asking either the director or the administrator to read the students' names. We have certificates for you, so if you'll come down, and then after all the names are read, we will pause so that Mrs. Westcott, who takes care of photos and publicity for us, as well as any family members or anyone else who would like to take a photo, can do so. So again, first we have Mr. Little for the All South Jersey Elementary Choral Festival. And he and Dr. Moore will join me. We're going to come down here so they have space and see them. Mr. Little, if I could just ask you just to tell us a little bit about what this is, and then if you would like to call the names, I'll just take that back. And Dr. Moore, if you'd like to give the certificates.
So this event happened on March 5th. It was a Saturday, so the students gave up their time and the parents gave up their time to transport them there. And the festival is about bringing students together from all over South Jersey region. Many of the participating schools were there with their directors and their participating students. So we get to have 5 students from any elementary school, K to 6. They try to have 4, 5, and 6. So most of the students there were about 5th graders and 6th graders. We had about 64 participants this year that were actually there present that day, and they are charged with preparing music outside of the stuff that we do here in our curricular goals towards our concerts and such. And so it was additional work on their part to prepare. I meet with them every now and then just to kind of check in, and then we all meet in the morning and have rehearsal there, eat lunch. They kind of get to meet some other of their peers outside of Galloway, and then we have a concert at 4 o'clock, and it's always so well received. The facility is wonderful, probably bigger than this GTMS. It's always like a wow factor when everybody gets in there. So it's a really, really fun event, and we usually have a guest conductor. Sometimes they bring somebody in from nationally. This year was just somebody from our region who conduct it and lead the way. So the students get an experience outside of just being in front of it. So our students that participate this year were Brandon Butler. I don't know if he's here.
Best smile, don't stay for the top. Congratulations to our students and certainly to Mr. Little as well. And thank you also, Dr. Moore, for being here. Continuing in the music vein, we also had students from Galloway Township Middle School selected to participate in the All South Jersey Junior High Honors Band. We originally were supposed to do this recognition on the 28th. And when we had to change it to the 21st, unfortunately, Mr. Dondero, the band director, could not be here. But I would like to welcome Mrs. Junker, the GTMS principal, to join in the presentation. Mrs. Junker, would you like to talk about the band? Or would you like me to
Mrs. Junker, I bet Sarah could tell you about that day.
Not know much about the All South Jersey Band today, but I did when I was younger.
Come on, give us that
I did
story.
try out for, I did practice up to, but I had to go on vacation. My mom took me away, so I was not actually able to audition for it. So I know that is a lot of work that goes into preparing for this. And our children did an amazing job. My instrument of choice was the clarinet, although I love the flute as well, Sarah. And so, Jack as well. I know I see him over there. So let me introduce our choir now. I think we've got 2 today. Sarah Carew, congratulations on flute. Congratulate Gabriella Nunez.
She's up there.
Oh, she is. Jack Schneeker. Congratulations. School family, I guess, right? And then DD as well. I'd like to congratulate.
Congratulations to our middle school band students as well. And, you know, it's great to be honoring students in so many different ways tonight in the musical area. So I might as well keep this because we have another presentation. So our next presentation is the proposed budget for next year. And we love having a full house. See, some of you have been here before. We would love for you to stay and learn about the budget. But if you have homework or activities or things to do, please have a wonderful night. Again, congratulations. Well, good evening again, and hopefully we have some folks watching out there in the live stream, because I look around the room at who is here. I want to begin by explaining that the budget is a team effort, and all of the different administrators at the building and district level seek input from the staff. And other stakeholder groups also have an opportunity, and it takes a lot of work to put together a budget of our size. For this evening's presentation, it's going to be a lot more of a story and less numbers, even though the amount of work dealing with the fiscal aspect is extensive. And Mrs. Nixon, our school business administrator, will be joining me in the presentation. I want to thank everyone who came out this evening and worked on the budget, and certainly to Mrs. Nixon and Mrs. Kukula, our assistant business administrator, who really have to do the number crunching. So here we go. So, you know, with a budget of $65 million plus, there are a lot of things that help us develop it. And there are things you might expect, like our goals, the needs of our students, assessing things, both formal assessments, anecdotal assessments, historical assessments, input, as I mentioned, from a lot of different stakeholders, federal and state mandates, and you may recall that we had CUSAC monitoring this year. I mentioned that fiscal work, and a lot of that is looking at our current status, as well as doing a lot of analysis. This year, we have another item, and you can see that it is in bold. And one of the reasons that this presentation this evening is a little bit different is because of that. You know, we have a lot of this school year under our belt, and it is very clear to us that the impact and other societal factors are impacting our children, and certainly when the children are impacted, so is the staff. So those of you that know me know I can talk, but this picture kind of says it all. In simplest terms, expenses have gone up. I don't think that surprises anyone, whether it is insurance, benefits, transportation, supplies and materials. Revenues, unfortunately, have gone down. Mrs. Nixon will get into a little bit more detail about the fact that we received a decrease in state aid. Student needs, on the other hand, have changed in every direction and in every way, and certainly have increased through no fault of their own. But we know that many of our children either were at home for a year or more in a virtual setting. If we think of last school year, those that were in person, it was not a full regular day, 5 days a week. And even this year, although as the year has progressed, we've made it more normal, whatever normal means to you, it still was not a typical year. And the impact of the pandemic, if we think about the amount of time it's lasted, we can then think about how long it will take to address that impact. I'm a big fan of quotes, and a lot of years I'll talk about balances between instructional and non-instructional, and this quote kind of says it. Obviously, a school district's primary purpose is the academic education, but I think we all know from research and our own experience that it is about the whole child. And so we have to look at the heart, the emotional side, the mental health side, because they go hand in hand. So here I have some quotes from teachers right here in Galloway. I didn't find these on a website or on Pinterest or on Twitter or anywhere else. These quotes came right from our own staff. I'm not going to read them to you, but I will pause and maybe highlight some things. These first two are one of our kindergarten teachers and one of our first grade teachers. If we think about these youngest grades, these children, if they went to preschool, did not have a normal preschool year. They did not have a kindergarten year that was typical, nor has this year as a first grader been typical. So our youngest learners really did not have the experience they do historically in simply learning what is school all about. Next, we see a quote from one of our elementary counselors. Now we switch to the middle school, and here's a quote from a teacher of 7th grade. One of the things I will add about our adolescents and pre-adolescents is prior to the pandemic, the impact of social media and texting and all the electronic communication that they already were doing and was impacting them. And then you had the pandemic, which pushed them even further into that world. And this quote is from two of our mental health specialists that spoke to each other and decided to share a joint quote. So you can see this is quite extensive. You may recall that pre-pandemic, we saw concerns within our students and the need to increase services related to that social, emotional, mental health realm. And we were lucky we did. We were fortunate that at the time the board supported adding those positions, because now that we are dealing with the pandemic, the work of everyone, including the school counselor positions, the counselors that already existed and the addition of the mental health specialists really are critical to us supporting our children and our staff members. One of the things we talked about in one of the small group budget meetings was the fact that outside of school, it is very difficult to get these kinds of services. There are, not as many services available here in Atlantic County, and long waiting lists. And these are conversations that, I've had very directly, either with parents or through our folks in the child study team and counseling realm. So what does this mean for our budget? So the budget that Mrs. Nixon and I presented, I'm very pleased to say, includes all our existing programs and services. So all of the different types of classes and content areas and services that we have been able to provide for our students, we are able to continue. Looking at class size, always important, we believe even more important than ever. I'm even more pleased to explain that in the budget there is growth or an increase in direct services to our children. Each elementary school already has intervention teachers. However, there is not one for every grade level. So we will be adding 4 intervention teachers, 1 for each elementary school. And when we think about intervention, if you're listening and you're not familiar with this, this is assistance for our children that are struggling with language, arts, and math. And this will enable us to better provide services, particularly in those primary grades. Along with that, supporting the primary grades, kindergarten classes that only have a teacher, not a co-teacher classroom, already have a part-time assistant. And these assistants work to support academics, but they also support the social, emotional, behavioral needs of the children and that overall classroom management. And so because of the experience I already described for our youngest learners, we felt we needed to add these assistants. Again, part-time, mainly for first grade, but if the schedule allows, we will have them dip into and support second grade as well. And finally, I mentioned our adolescents and things that we were seeing with our pre-adolescents, our teenagers prior to the pandemic that have only been exacerbated. There was an alternative program at the middle school for many years, and for a number of reasons, it went away. It is definitely time to bring it back. So the budget also supports an additional teacher and classroom assistant at the middle school for that program. On the non-instructional side, obviously maintaining safety and security still matters. So much focus has been on the health side of the pandemic, but those other types of things that relate to security, we still need to do. Our district works very hard at keeping our schools clean and good repair. And certainly we did enough inclement weather cleanup this past year. Maybe we'll get a little break, but we never know what Mother Nature will bring. Technology, again, something that's become even more important. And one of the areas in recent years that we have really stepped up our game is in cybersecurity. And in fact, the Joint Insurance Fund, of which we are a part, now has requirements for cybersecurity in order to even get the insurance, which is extremely important. I'm pleased to say we meet most of the requirements, but there are some things that we are going to have to add to meet the demands, and we must have that insurance. Transportation costs, as I mentioned, while we do not transport every child, we do have our children who live further than 2 miles or in an area that has been designated as requiring transportation, and certainly we have students with disabilities who, no matter where they live, are given transportation. And then lastly, and this really is a non-instructional and instructional issue, there are many state and federal mandates. I'm going to kick it over to Mrs. Nixon for the next few slides.
Thank you. So after we prepared the full budget for next year with administrative help, we determined that we need to cut some of our expenditures by 3.6 million. So those reductions were made in consultation with administration. And then in some instances, we were able to still make the purchases using federal funds this year, district maintenance reserve accounts and capital reserve accounts, or general funds this year if we were able to make the purchase this year for next year. As a reminder, the reserves are the district's way to save funds for upkeep of the schools and replacement as needed. If we did not build those reserves in previous years with building a healthy budget, then we would not be able to take those items out of the general budget for next year because we would not have the reserve funds to do that. And those needs would still have be a need that we need to fulfill. When we use reserve funds, that allows us to not have to hold a referendum and increase taxes beyond the local budget. Our debt service is very small. We have about less than $200,000 in debt service. Many districts have multi-million-dollar debt service funds, and that will be paid off in 2 years. So for the current year budget, the district did not raise taxes, but for next year's budget, state aid decreased in an amount of $1.1 million. So when we looked at next year's budget, even with the reduction of $3.6 million in expenses, we had to look at our current tax levy, the general fund amount that we could increase, which was 2%, which is actually only 1% of the general operating budget, and then what bank cap we had available for not going to cap in previous years. Ratables for Galloway Township increased by approximately $599,000. That is a positive effect to taxes, so I wanted to note that. So the tax impact for the budget presented tonight is a 2% tax levy increase, plus the use of the available bank cap, and that for a home assessed at $200,000, that is $66 a year, or about $5.50 a month.
Thank you, Mrs. Nixon. And, you know, we've had a lot of words, and then they say a picture, start with the first one. They say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so, you know, coming before the board and the public and asking for a tax increase is not something we take lightly. But as I shared earlier, the impact of the pandemic makes a difference. And we are here, you know, if you think of our motto, where children and learning come first, we're here for the children. So we pulled from different archives and reached out to the schools, and we're able to collect some photos that you will see. Some are pre-pandemic. It'll be very obvious when they are in the pandemic, because you will see masks on the children. And here you see our outdoor garden at Pomona. I will mention that Mrs. Chester, in her role as Master Gardener, was very involved in that. This picture is actually from this year, obviously St. Patrick's Day. They made leprechaun traps. Over here, we have spelling bee winners. And down at the bottom, we have students working collaboratively in problem solving, hands-on, higher order thinking. Next, Mr. B's backyard, and I'm pleased to say we are looking to bring the Nature Fest back this year. This activity, and you can't see it really closely, but it's entitled The Best Part of Me. And so some students picked their smile, their foot, their hands, and then they had to write a paragraph about why that was the best part of them. And I love that reflection. Down here, I actually took this one myself. This is a technology lesson using this Hero, which helps students learn the very beginning of coding. And then here we have students, and you can't see it, but their hats say sentence builders. And so they're working on a language arts activity and increasing their writing skills. And then we finish off with some photos from the middle school. We have our step and drill team. We have our chorus, builders club, and I know other schools also did this, October. And then here we have a photo from a student of the month luncheon. Although a picture is worth 1,000 words, I had to finish up with a quote. And, you know, I mentioned not just the impact of the pandemic, but other things happening in society. So we also know our children are hearing, and if they have the television on in the house, which is pretty common, they also know that what's happening in the Ukraine. And children are asking about that. And so this quote really struck me. One of the goals of education is to breed confidence in our children, academic confidence, confidence as a person and in self. That leads to hope, and we like to believe, and maybe this will make it so, hope breeds peace. I would like to thank everyone again involved in the budget. Those of you who this was not your assigned meeting for coming out tonight, what we will be doing is opening up first for board questions and comment. There will be an opportunity for public comment, and then there is a resolution on the board agenda for the budget that we presented. What happens after that is Mrs. Nixon and Mrs. Pakula finish their part of the work, and it gets submitted to the Department of Ed. The executive county superintendent and business official review it, approve it, and then the budget is published. And then on April 25th is the public budget hearing with the final approval. Again, thank you to everyone. Hold on. You know my hearing. I'm going to come near you if you're asking a question. Tell me if I get too close.
It's not really a question. It's just more of a comment. I understand everything you said and all the things. I just want to comment that I think we need to be very conscious of the way the world is around us. And what I mean by that is electric bills are skyrocketing. Gas bills, everything from all directions. And we're a small piece of a larger picture. So while I understand that, you know, to break it down by month, that it seems like it's one more amount on who are already struggling. So I am absolutely in support of maintaining the current programs and services that we have, but I'm very concerned about increasing access to the max.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments?
I have a couple of questions here based on the presentation that just saw and in this blue paper that we have. Be it further resolved, the need for 1,162,800 of unused spending authority bank card to be included in the base budget. Now, the need for that is what I'm concerned about. The need for this bank card is to offset the increases in salaries. I understand the health benefit aspect of it. I'm going to just support what she said. Things are tough for everybody right now. Families are suffering. That is the fact. $1 a month might be nothing to you, but there are some families that if you had $1 to their budget, they will struggle to meet up. And I will give you an example. I have a patient that came to my office. He told me just last week that he wanted to go to food bank to get food, but he has no money for transport. In this Galloway, now we're going to add extra amount of money to this person because we want to increase salary at this time. I don't think that really is what we should do right now. Okay, there are ways we can look into how to solve the problem within what we have and within our budget. Okay, and we can still meet our goals by doing that. I strongly believe that those of us that have houses here, homeowners, you do not go beyond your budget on a monthly basis. You plan yourself and you live within that budget and you achieve your goal at the end of the month. And I think we can do the same thing instead of putting burden on the people of Galloway at this time that people are going through a lot of financial stress. That is what I see here that we really need to think about before passing this budget. There are other programs that we that was mentioned. Let's see what we talk about the you talk about the impact of pandemic. Well, pandemic affects virtually every walks of life. Affect everybody, not just the school system, not just the school system. Okay, and again, we don't need to create extra expenses at this moment. That state, federal, they are cutting budgets. Why are we increasing? We are going opposite of what they are doing to achieve, to do what we should look inward and do without putting, stress on anyone. Now again, okay, I think those are two things I need to say. I just want us to look really well into this before we pass it, before we pass this budget. We're going to use 2% cap. We're going to use all our bank cap. Then what happens to us next year? What happened to us in 2024? Then we're going to tax the people again, right? We're going to tax them again. Come up with some kind of excuse to increase it again. You know how many people that already left Galloway, left New Jersey because of high tax? Go and look at the record. Go and look at it. People are leaving. They are moving out because of high taxes. And we just have to be, very cautious of what we're doing. Thank you.
Dr. Miller, I do want to address one thing that you said. You asked what happens in the future. And what I want to explain is one of the reasons we are making this recommendation is not just for next year, but the future. So for example, last year we did a flat tax levy. We did not increase taxes 1 penny. Prior years to that, we did not go and use all the available cap, and that's why that banked cap is available. So if we continue to not grow the budget, we are going to end up in a crisis situation because 1 year to the next makes a difference. And Mrs. Nixon shared with me a conversation with the executive county business official, Mrs. Lisa Semino. You will see that most districts go to cap every year because that allows you to gradually grow the budget and handle increases in things that are outside of our control, utilities, transportation, etc. If we had always gone to the cap, we wouldn't have this bank cap available. So this year we are making that growth. Next year, there will be no bank and the board will have to stay within that cap. So, I respect you and Mrs. Chester's comments about the taxpayers. I also do want to share that our realm is the school district. This is what we are here for, including the board members. And, I need to say this. When I look at the board members' code of ethics, it's in our board policy, it's on the New Jersey School Board Association website. There is nothing about the taxpayers. I respect that as elected officials, and even us as administrators, we don't want to ignore the taxpayers. We are taxpayers ourselves, but in my mind, in all my years, the board's first priority is the children and the school district. And again, I respect everyone's opinion, and I appreciate you sharing.
If you don't mind, I agree with you that the board of the main reason is to take care of the children. Mind you, the taxpayers are the parents of these children that we're talking about. So whatever affect the parents, will affect the students that we think that we're taking care of. So inadvertently, we are now actually taking care of the children because what is going on negatively in the house is affecting them. We're just talking about the effect of pandemic because they stay home for more than a year. That's what we're talking about. That is what happened in the house. They got it to the school grant, and we're now dealing with it. So we have to think that whatever we're doing that affect them negatively, affect their parents negatively, these children will also bring it down here, and we will still have to deal with it.
Thank you. Is there any other board comments? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I just think it's really important to understand the role that the school plays in the lives of children. We have children who start here at age 3, all the way through 8th grade. We have children who arrive at school at 7 a.m. Every child here is fed breakfast and lunch for free. The role that the school plays in mental health, in supporting disabilities, this is where it's at. People think that there are things in the community that the state of New Jersey is providing things. Really, the money is coming from IDEA, from those programs that are mandated and never really fully funded, and that's what has to happen, and that's the role of the school. And it really is heartbreaking to me that it turns into the schools begging for what they need and then having the funding pulled. We're told to expand preschool and reach all the children from preschool and provide full-day preschool, and then they take away $700,000 in preschool funding. How are we supposed to do this? How are we supposed to do this as a community? So from one year to the next and not knowing what your funding is going to be, to try to do these programs, to read through the notes and see what's happening, to know what's happening with the children and the effects of that. We saw the Start Strong results. We saw how much learning loss there was. And the remediation that is required to do that. That's not just sitting in the room and passively learning. That's the work of the teachers. That's the work of the staff. These are things that need to be funded. We're funding the people. We're funding the people. I am a person who, because of the COVID pandemic, is like chronically unemployed now. I'm one of these people who's been really, really massively hurt by the pandemic. And I am saying I fully support this because we have to think of the long goal. We have to think of bringing these children, providing what they need, and then getting them to adulthood to be responsible citizens. And that is ultimately what we are here for.
Thank you. Mr. Davis?
As Joy, correct me if I'm wrong, we lost $1.1 million in state aid. Because how much did we lose on pre-K funding? Is that $753,000 or something like that?
That is included in the 1.1 million.
It's 1.1, but the state still took away $1.1 million. How many other districts in Atlantic County lost money this year? I know we have fewer students, but does that equate to maybe $50,000?
There's a large number of districts that lost state aid as well.
In the county?
Yes.
Okay. Now, my other thing is a personal thing. I'm a little fiscally conservative. My wife and I are living on 2 Social Security checks a month and a small pension check. That's our income. Okay? We're surviving. We're talking about a $66 a year increase for a person with $200,000 home. That's an adult Sprite per month, if you look at it that way. We have cut back, trying to maintain everything. You got to remember, every kid, every child, pre-K to 8th, is our future. Without them, where are we going to go? We have to give them the best available education that we can. And I think it's up to the parents, even the non-parents, to contribute a little bit to these students. They are our future. We depend on them.
Yes.
You brought up lunches. The fact is that's not going to happen. That's been taken away. So the same parents that were going to raise their taxes also had this huge benefit that was a very large help in their budget. It's being taken away. they are going to be paying for all of those lunches and breakfasts that they weren't paying for this year, and we're still gonna raise taxes. I understand.
I'm sorry, just to have accurate information, breakfast is free. We've had universal breakfast since before the pandemic, and free and reduced will still also be available for families, and there's also pending legislation to expand the current status for 5 years.
I think it's not tax, so just that's depending on something that, which is where we end up in this situation.
Is there any other board comment? Yes.
I certainly understand the frustration that's been expressed. And one of the things that constantly comes home to me, sitting on the board here, is how little authority school boards have. The state constitution requires that the legislature, not us, the legislature provide for the maintenance and support of a thorough and efficient system of free public schools for the children in the state. Our Supreme Court has talked about equal educational opportunity. So how does the legislature define equal educational opportunity? That is solely their province. We can't define it. They do. They define it through state mandated programs that are imposed on schools. They define it by requirements to not only educate, but to ensure the emotional health, safety, and welfare of our children. If you look around in Rankin County at the mental health services that are funded by the legislature for our children, if you look to perform care, to the children's system of care, which is new. The community-based mental health services, somewhat, but anybody who knows anything about children, the services available to them, knows that they are seriously wanted. So what does the legislature do? It turns to the schools as part of its authority to provide equal educational opportunity. Now, how can the legislature fund districts? Property taxes. We know that. But that is not the only thing that the legislature has to fund schools. It can pass legislation, and they do, and they do. Now let's look at Galloway Township. Part of the problem with property taxes in this municipality is we have hundreds, maybe I overstated, but hundreds and hundreds of acres of property that cannot be taxed. Why can't it be taxed? Because Atlantic Behavioral Health is considered to be a nonprofit organization. In North Jersey, a municipality, not a school district, but a municipality sued a local hospital and maintained that they were not a nonprofit corporation within the definition of the nonprofit corporation statute. And the hospital settled that case. And there was before Governor Murphy in the autumn of 2020 a fee per bed legislation that was going to begin to address that. That is, $3 per bed was going to be paid for local municipal tax relief. And it sat on his desk and did not pass. And there's nothing else pending. I know of no attempt by our municipality to bring an action against Atlantic here to seek the same relief. I know, having consulted individually, some research individually on this, that again, the limited nature of school boards, if we cannot institute such legislation, that is with the municipality. When the legislature attempts to take property and allow it to be developed and relieve the tax burden, it provides that municipalities and governmental entities can enter into pilot projects with businesses to bring them in, to cut the taxes that they have to pay, with no consequences whatsoever to the educational system, to the school, to the local educational system. There are pilot projects, and that legislation and those mechanisms do not require, that legislation does not require that a municipality take into effect the impact on the taxpayer, the homeowners of this tax break to businesses. The legislature chooses not to assess what's going to happen to the individual taxpayer. So by legislative determination, we are not paying, we are essentially paying taxes that rightly should be paid by the taxpayer. We're paying taxes that rightly should be paid by any should get a cut of it. And not me, but the school district should get a cut of it. And the legislature does not affect that. It doesn't deal with that issue. There is no comprehensive proposal that I am aware of that would address these inequities that have been in existence. I remember I graduated high school in 1973, and I remember that in a political science course, they talked about how unfair property taxes are as a mechanism by which to fund schools. And they are. They are. And the legislature has known this now for 50 years. They brought litigation was brought in 1973 to resolve this issue. And here we are 50 years later. All I know is this. All I know is this. That our role is to serve and protect children. Our role is to provide for their education. The legislature has made it our role to ensure their emotional well-being, to ensure their safety. And then the amount of money we have to pay, and we have paid, because our teachers have to be protected from folks coming out with guns. How many millions of dollars did we pay on? Because of the fact that we're expected, appropriately so, to protect our children in this culture. A culture that has become so narcissistic that turns in on itself, that literally consumes its young, so that IT companies can make a profit. We are the last line of defense for children. We are a community that professes to be existing to protect our children. That's what this community is. That's what this school board is. That's what our district is. That's what our teachers do. They deserve the funds to do it. And if the legislature continues to act this way, the recourse is not to hinder our staff. The recourse is not to provide services that our children so badly need. The recourse is to go to our municipal government and ask them, why are they not bringing in action against Medicare to try and get a fee for bed? Our recourse is to go to our legislators and say, why in God's name are you cutting our aid? Why are you causing our citizens to be in a place where they can't afford food, or to be in a place where they can't afford whatever it is they need every day? Our role is to provide for the children. That's what school boards exist for. That's what the schools are about. This is a legislative issue, and our children should not suffer because our legislature is acting with reckless disregard.
Thank you. Is there any other board comments? Yes.
I disagree. If you can have it, maintaining is not making our children suffer. Maintaining where we are now, the time when people around us are struggling, is not making our children suffer. I completely disagree with that. I agree with most of what you said, Mr. Gentile, but when people are already struggling, adding additional expenses does not make sense to me. To go beyond maintaining where we are right now. In this moment, we need to maintain where we are and then look at next year. And that's just mine.
Thank you. Is there any other board comments?
Yes, I just want to say that I think it's pretty clear by the quotes that were on the screen that maintaining is not enough for this district. I do not agree that maintaining is enough for this district. I think about the students who might not have the services that they need if we were not to fund the positions that are proposed in this budget. I think of the families who might not be able to spend $1 for transportation, but then cannot have the funds to get the assistance that they need that would not be able to be provided. I think about my 4-year-old son who has anxiety because he was kept in a house for 2 years, and I'm now seeking services. So I'm thinking about the co-pays that I have to pay as a parent, $10, and I have really good insurance. I'm thinking about the parents who won't be able to pay those types of services or fees. So I am fully in support of this budget, and I'm fully in support of not maintaining, but excelling for this district and the students that deserve it from us.
Thank you. Is there any other board comments? At this time, we'll open the floor for any public comment. See none. I guess we'll, is this read by Joy, or do I need to read this for the budget submission part? Does Joy read this, or shall I? Okay, I'll read it. So be resolved to approve the proposed school district budget for the 2022-2023 school year for submission to the Executive County Superintendent of Schools as follows. The budget of $75,588,241 with a local tax levy of $35,825,572. Be it further resolved, the need for $1,162,800 of unused spending authority bank cap to be included in the base budget. The need for this bank cap is to offset the increases in salaries and health benefits. These costs cannot be further incrementally completed over an extended period of time. Be it further resolved to acknowledge that the 22-23 budget as described above results in a general tax levy of $35,712,752 and a debt service fund tax levy of $112,820. Be it further resolved pursuant to code, budgeted travel expenses do not exceed $50,000. Also pursuant to code, maximum dollar amounts for public relations and professional services have been established and are detailed in the appropriations section of the 22-23 budget. May I have a motion to approve item D?
So,
May I have a roll call, please?
yes.
Dr. Parmenter. Mrs. Avery. Yes. Dr. Sherrill.
Yes.
Dr. Billwood. Mrs. Chester.
No.
Mrs. Colgatis. Yes. Vice President Davis.
Yes.
And President Carr.
No. Moving on to superintendent's report, please.
Thank you, and thank you for the approval. So, just in time, we have our attorney's report, so I'll turn it over to Mrs. Algello.
Thank you, everybody. Since the last time we met, I had the opportunity to work with administration on some personnel matters, some student matters, and some contractual matters. Thank you very much.
Student enrollment and absence.
Thank you. Yes, the student enrollment report, as of March 18, 2022, in district, 3,105 students. If we add in students in various out-of-district locations, including special services, other schools for students with disability, home instruction, charter, our preschool offsite Head Start and Garden State Academy, as well as choice. The grand total is 3,265 students. Also attached for the board is the February out-of-school suspension report. Item 4 is an action item regarding the HIP report given on February 28th, and item 5 is an informational item, the most recent HIP report.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve item number 4, which is to accept the HIP report presented on February 28th for the reporting period of January 20th through February 23rd, 2022. Any board comment? May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Shinskill.
Yes.
Dr. Billwood. Yes. Mrs. Avery. Yes. Dr. Sherrill. Yes. Mrs. Chester. Yes. Mrs. Colgatis. Yes. Dr. Parmenter. Vice President Davis.
Yes.
And President Carr.
Yes, curriculum instruction, please.
Thank you. Item 1 is for a principalship intern. Item 2 is a student for homeschooling. And item 3 is 3 activities for the GTMS drill step team.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve items 1 through 3 under curriculum instruction?
So moved.
Is there any board comment? May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Shinskill.
Yes.
Dr. Sherrill. Yes. Mrs. Avery. Yes. Dr. Billwood. Yes. Mrs. Chester. Yes. Mrs. Colgatis. Yes. Dr. Parmenter. Vice President Davis.
Yes.
And President Carr.
Yes, finance and school operations. Was there a meeting, Dr. Sherrill?
Yes, the finance committee went prior to tonight's meeting, we reviewed the bills list and financial reports. There was a question regarding the name of one of the accounts that was clarified by Joy, and then we were given an overview of the audit, and I'm very pleased to say that there were no audit findings, so very good kudos to Joy.
That's great, thank you. Finance and school operations.
Thank you. Resolution 1 is to accept the audit report for year ending June 30th, 2021 by Bowman Company LLP, and there are no audit recommendations.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve item 1?
So moved.
Is there any board comments? That's really excellent. Again, another year, no findings.
Yes, Joy did it. Joy, I think, did a great job.
Thank you.
And is the actual roll call? Sorry.
Thank you. Mr. Shinskill.
Yes.
Dr. Sherrill. Yes. Mrs. Avery. Yes. Dr. Billwood.
Yes.
Mrs. Chester. Yes. Mrs. Colgatis. Yes. Dr. Parmenter. Vice President Davis.
Yes.
And President Carmen.
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution Resolutions 2 through 9 are to approve the monthly financial reports and bills list. Resolution 10 and 11 are to approve renewals for the CASBO GIF for the next school year. Resolution 12 and 13 are to approve renewals of the food service contract between us and Atlantic Community Charter School for the next school year. Resolution 14 is to approve submission of the preschool fiscal year 23 budget workbook. Resolution 15 is to approve McKinney-Vento tuition payable student. Resolution 16 and 17 are to approve agreements for special education. Resolution 18 is to approve home instruction. And resolution 19 is to approve transportation contract.
Thank you. Can I have a motion for items 2 through 19, please?
So moved.
Is there any board comment? May I have roll call, please?
Mr. Gentile.
Yes.
Dr. Galloway. Mrs. Avery. Yes. Dr. Bashir. Yes. Mrs. Chester.
Yes, but abstaining.
Mrs. Colgatis. Yes. Dr. Carmenter. Yes. Vice President Davis.
I was abstaining from number 9, bill list, page 9, appeal number 202162. Even though it's made out to Mainland Regional High School, my daughter-in-law's name is on the bill list. I'm abstaining.
Thank you. And President Carmen.
Yes. Facilities and maintenance, please.
Resolution 1 is to approve withdrawal of the maintenance reserve account for the projects listed. And resolution 2 is authorization of surplus property.
Thank you. Can I have a motion for items 1 and 2 under facilities and maintenance?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Second. Thank you. Is there any board comment? May I have roll call, please?
Mr. Gentile.
Yes.
Dr. Bashir. Yes. Mrs. Avery. Yes. Dr. Galloway.
Yes.
Mrs. Chester. Yes. Mrs. Colgatis. Yes. Vice President Davis.
Yes.
And President Carmen.
Yes. Community use of school facilities, please.
Thank you. We have 4 items this evening. Items 1 or 2 are for Pale basketball. Item 3 is for East Coast Crush volleyball. And item 4 is for Galloway men's basketball.
Thank you. Can I have a motion for items 1 through 4 under community use of school facilities?
So moved.
Is there any board comment? May I have roll call, please?
Mr. Gentile.
Yes.
Dr. Galloway. Mrs. Avery. Yes. Dr. Bashir. Yes. Mrs. Chester.
Yes.
Mrs. Colgatis. Yes. Dr. Parmenter. Vice President Davis.
Yes.
President Carmen.
Yes. Personnel, please.
Thank you. We do have several retirements on the agenda this evening. And as in the past, I will read them in their entirety. Item 1 is a resolution to accept with regret the letter of intent to retire from Catherine Cozine, Reed's Road Elementary School teacher, effective June 30th, 2022. Mrs. Cozine has worked in the Galloway Township Public School District for 31 years, and her dedication and service to students and staff are appreciated by our entire school family.
Thank you. Can I have a motion for item 1 under personnel?
So moved.
Is there any board comment? May I have roll call, please?
Mr. Gentile.
Yes.
Dr. Galloway. Mrs. Avery. Yes. Dr. Bashir. Yes. Mrs. Chester.
Yes.
Mrs. Colgatis. Yes. Vice President Davis.
Yes.
And President Carmen.
Yes, with regret.
Thank you. Item 2 is a resolution to accept with regret the letter of intent to retire from Robin Devine, Reed's Road Elementary School teacher, effective June 30th, 2022. Mrs. Devine has worked in the Galloway Township Public School District also for 31 years, and her dedication and service to students and staff are appreciated by our entire school family.
Thank you. Can I have a motion for item 2 under personnel?
So moved.
Is there any board comment? May I have roll call?
Mr. Gentile.
Yes.
Dr. Galloway. Mrs. Avery. Yes. Dr. Bashir. Yes. Mrs. Chester.
Yes.
Mrs. Colgatis. Yes. Vice President Davis.
Yes.
And President Carmen.
Yes, with regret.
Thank you. Item 3 is a resolution to accept with regret the letter of intent to retire from Hope Conrad, Curriculum Office Secretary, effective July 31st, 2022. Mrs. Conrad has worked in the Galloway Township Public Schools for 25 years, and her dedication and service to students and staff are appreciated by our entire school family.
Thank you. Can I have a motion for item 3 under personnel?
So moved.
Is there any board comment? May I have roll call?
Mr. Gentile.
Yes.
Dr. Galloway.
Yes.
Mrs. Avery. Yes. Dr. Bashir. Yes. Mrs. Chester.
Yes.
Mrs. Colgatis. Yes. Vice
Yes.
And President Hartman.
Yes. Thank you. Item 4 is a resolution to accept with regret the letter of intent to retire from Terry Matisse, Reeds Road Elementary School Classroom Assistant, effective June 30th, 2022. Mrs. Matisse has worked in the Galloway Township Public Schools for 22 years, and her dedication and service to students and staff are appreciated by our entire school family.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve item number 4, please?
So moved.
Second. Is there any board comment? May I have roll call?
Mr. Gentile.
Yes.
Dr. Sherwood. Mrs. Avery. Dr. Galloway. Mrs. Chester.
Yes.
Mrs. Colgettis. Yes. Dr. Parmenter. Vice President Davis.
Yes.
And President Hartman.
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution 5 is to accept with regret the letter of intent to retire from Ronald Bunkin-Evans, Arthur Rand Elementary School Classroom Assistant, effective June 30th, 2022. Mr. Bunkin-Evans has worked in the Galloway Township Public Schools for 15 years, and his dedication and service to students and staff are appreciated by our entire school family.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve item 5 under personnel?
So moved.
Is there any board comment? May I have roll call, please?
Mr. Gentile.
Yes.
Mrs. Avery. Dr. Sherwood. Dr. Galloway. Mrs. Chester.
Yes.
Mrs. Colgettis. Yes. Dr. Parmenter. Vice President Davis.
Yes.
President Hartman.
Yes.
Thank you. And the final retirement in this section, resolution to accept with regret the letter of intent to retire from Thomas Ortiz, District Senior Help Desk Technician, effective January 1st, 2023. Mr. Ortiz has worked in the Galloway Township Public Schools for 25 years, and his dedication and service to students and staff are appreciated by our entire school family.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve item 6 under personnel?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there any board comment? May I have roll call, please?
Mr. Gentile.
Yes.
Dr. Sherwood. Mrs. Avery. Dr. Galloway. Mrs. Chester.
Yes.
Mrs. Colgettis. Dr. Parmenter. Vice President Davis.
Yes.
And President Hartman.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 7 is a letter of resignation. Items 8, 9, 10, and 11 are leave requests. Item 12 is to appoint Brian Hartman as classroom assistant. Item 13 is to approve Deborah McNamara Moon as 12-month child study team secretary. Item 14 is to approve Maybe Farron as a part-time food service worker. Item 15 is for substitute teachers. Item 16 for a substitute nurse. Item 17 for a substitute custodian. For item 18, we do need to add a name. All of the information is the same in terms of the dates, the salary, and the account, and that is Margaret Carol Nash. We apologize for that not being on the original agenda. Item 19, this is a requirement by the state, is to approve the evaluation rubrics used for various categories of certificated staff.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve items 7 through 19 under personnel?
So moved.
Is there any board comment?
And
Yes.
I just want to say one thing, I'm happy to see that we use Danielson and Galloway, and I feel like that's really, supports student growth, and teachers' creativity, and building relationships, and I think that that's how we should be evaluating our teachers. It's the learning, but it's also that classroom environment where everybody feels safe.
Thank you. Is there any other board comment? May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Gentile.
Yes.
Mrs. Avery. Dr. Sherwood. Dr. Galloway. Mrs. Chester.
Yes.
Mrs. Colgettis. Yes. Dr. Parmenter. Vice President Davis.
Yes.
And President Hartman.
Yes. Supplemental personnel, please.
Thank you. Item 1 is staff members for the Roland Rogers Elementary School Parent Family Title I team. Item 2 is an additional staff member for the child care program. And item 3 are the coaches and the athletic director for spring sports.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve items 1 through 3 under supplemental personnel?
So moved.
Second. Is there any board comment? May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Gentile.
Yes.
Mrs. Avery. Dr. Sherwood. Dr. Galloway. Mrs. Chester.
Yes.
Mrs. Colgettis. Yes. Dr. Parmenter. Vice President Davis.
Yes.
And President Hartman.
Yes. Moving on to policy, Dr. Parmenter, do we have an update?
I have to apologize, I'm unable to access my policy report at this time due to technical difficulties.
No problem. I guess just moving on to, does anybody else have any questions or comments about policy that was there?
We do have three policies for first reading. The first one is the pandemic policy, and there's basically one correction or change, I should say, to reflect face covering and aligning that with state or federal guidance. That is true of policy 3, face coverings. Policy 2, conduct and discipline, has some changes in the language from the original policy, and it also includes an entire section on hazing, which is now required by law. And again, this is the first reading.
And since this is the first reading, if anybody has any questions for Dr. Parmenter for the next meeting. Is there any? Oh, you want me here?
No, the email.
Oh, the email, okay. Is there any report comment? May I have roll call, please?
Can I have a first and second?
Oh, sorry. Can I have a motion to approve items 1 through 3 under policy?
So moved.
Second.
Any board comment? May I have roll call, please?
Mr. Shinfield.
Yes.
Dr. Sherwood. Yes. Mrs. Avery. Yes. Dr. Billaboo. Mrs. Chester. Yes. Mrs. Cole-Gaddis. Yes. Dr. Parmenter. Vice President Dace.
Yes.
And President Harmon.
Yes, notice of public meetings.
Thank you. In April and May, we have one meeting each month. April 25th is the public budget hearing and a regular meeting. May 23rd is the regular meeting.
And continuing with special events.
Yes, very pleased to have GTMS drama production at high school musical. The dates and times are listed. Also, our Ed Foundation People of the Year dinner is April 7th. I will do a reminder, the reservations are due by this Friday. And also mark your calendars for the district retirement reception on June 2nd.
Thank you. Moving on to old business.
Yes, just one resolution to revise the current year calendar, which basically adds the third inclement weather day and makes the last day of school June 20th.
Thank you. Can I motion to approve item number 1 under old business?
So moved.
Is there any board comment? May I have a roll call, please?
Penfield.
Yes.
Dr. Parmenter. Mrs. Avery. Dr. Sherwood. Dr. Billaboo. Mrs. Chester. Yes. Mrs. Cole-Gaddis. Vice President Dace.
Yes.
And President Harmon.
Yes. And new businesses, Dr. Sherwood. Mrs. Chester. Dr. Parmenter. Mr. Penfield. Mrs. Cole-Gaddis.
Anytime I get.
Anytime you get the microphone, right?
I just want to talk about St. Baldrick's fundraiser that happened at Rolling Rogers School, and how the staff, the folks who were involved in that, it was just really wonderful to see, and that my 5th grader, it like touched his heart that he wanted to be a Shady and raise funds for that, and that people, if you just ask, people were willing to donate, and he shaved his head. And to see so many brave people who came out and staff members who it was a lot of fun to see that, and to know that they raised $16,000, right? I mean, that's just amazing, phenomenal. Just so proud of that. And then just that my 5th grader was like, this is something important, and he wanted to stand up for that. And that's like the opportunities, right, that we get in public school. And how important that is to me. So I just want to say that. And that's actually get into the school building and to see what's happening. And I think it's so important to see the chorus, the arts, the things that are happening in our schools, to see that they were making a Lego wall and they were making flags, and amazing things are happening. And part of the shame and the sadness of this pandemic was the separation of families not being able to see the wonderful things that happen in school and how important school is to the development of our children. And so just even that little bit of getting in there and having that little event and being able to be a part of that, I think was just such a nice step in the right direction to where coming together with the school, and the family, the community, and I'm hoping to see more of this in the future, and that's part of healing, and that all of this, that we will return to normal. That is my hope, right? That we will return to normal, and how much of normal is school.
Thank you. Mrs. Avery. Dr. Billaboo.
All I can say is I agree with what Susan said. This is the first year I did not attend St. Walter's. Several years, but it's a great fundraising event. And even the teachers and all the students are participating. God bless them all.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open up for public comment to everyone. Seeing none, we do have executive session this evening, so may I have a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of negotiations update TCA and further resolve that the Galloway Township Board of Education discussion of each subject matter in executive session shall be disclosed to the public if and when confidentiality is no longer required and action pursuant to said discussion takes place at a public meeting unless otherwise prohibited by law. Now therefore be resolved that the Galloway Township Board of Education will be in executive session for approximately 60 minutes and action may or may not be taken upon return. All in favor of that motion? Any opposed? Any abstain? Mr. Bates, thank you. We are going to executive. Thank you.
I will say this, we should change the minutes. I don't think we're going to be there for 60 minutes and no action is being taken. We can go with that. We don't need to go all the way to the library.